ETSU men's basketball team make it 11 in a row. They beat Mercer yesterday, 84-75. Jalen Cloud matches his career high with 25 points. Also, they get 15 points from senior guard Devin Terrius Payne, and fellow senior guard Santa Bradford has 15 points, matches his career high with 9 assists. Big game coming up this weekend as they are going to travel to Wofford. Wofford has lost just one game so far in SoCon play, so essentially is a battle for first place, and it's on the road for ETSU coming up on Saturday. The ETSU women's basketball team, they are set to play host to Mercer coming up tonight. Both of these teams go into tonight's matchup with an undefeated league record. With a sports flash on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, I'm Matt Pauley.
Anyway, getting back to the discussion, this is Tri-City Sports Now about a new football league. What I wanted to get to was if you look back at the USFL, the cities that actually embraced it, there were places like Birmingham, Alabama. There were places like, for better or worse, even though they had a bad stadium, the San Antonio. There were places like, in fact, I would say that having a team in Arizona, having teams in Jacksonville, these cities were able to eventually join the NFL and become permanent pro football because of their endeavors in the USFL, proving that the league could make it. I mean, Birmingham is, even, remember, Alabama's in Tuscaloosa, so, Auburn is in Auburn. The Blazers are in Birmingham, so they're trying to say, hi, we'd like to be over here and be known for something other than old steel mills here in Birmingham, and even, we'd like to have football here and all this, and we'd like to be known as a nice city in the South here, just like Nashville and Atlanta are, and we'd like to be Charlotte here maybe, and all that. Could we please have a pro football team? No, you're not big enough. Please, we'd like to be like New Orleans or so. So not only did the old Stallions of the USFL, but the Vulcans of the old World Football League, that's really going back a ways, more than 40 years, also had some success. And I believe there was a team in the XFL in Birmingham as well. Anyway, there was a team, the Las Vegas had a team in the XFL. Now, where I'm going with this is the feeling is you have some major market exposure in New York and LA, Chicago possibly, and then you have those, up and coming markets, the smaller cities, that sort of thing. The Memphises, they'd certainly like one, but let me just throw this out to you here. When you're looking at this, and now there are 32 teams, 30 markets in the NFL, and while there are certainly plenty of San Diegos and San Antonios and St. Louis's and Portland's that were mentioned that would like to have teams, well, maybe a New York is big enough to have, if they can find the place to play, another pro football team. I mean, they have 3 hockey teams. They used to have 3 Major League Baseball teams, for crying out loud. Could a XFL team join them along with the Giants and Jets? What if it plays in the city, which is something that the Giants and Jets don't do? That's an appeal. But as I theorize here, I'll just throw this out. Tri-Cities, it's a top 100 market. And we are looking for things to do. Now, I don't know where the team would play. You'd have to, build, you're going to play at BMS in front of half capacity. I don't even know if that's practical on a daily basis, that sort of thing. You're going to build onto a current existing stadium? Possibly. In high school somewhere. So this would be very prohibitive, obviously, to having such a franchise. And you do, however, modern pro sports, you got to understand something here. Although they like to talk about the venues and the stadiums and comfort, convenience and all that and the luxury boxes, that's what it's all about. Revenue in modern sports world, it's TV. It's all TV. or as I guess we could be branching out, should I say, broadcast. As you watch, I'm sure some of you right now on Facebook Live and the other sorts. But anyway, just to go through this, WWE clarified at the time of the initial reports it was not going to go back into the football business when the XFL didn't make it. The XFL, if you remember, started real strong. I mean, it won all the ratings back in 2000, the first week, and then it just went. They changed announcers. I also think that the fact that you begin with, say, 8 franchises, it just doesn't have the footprint that a NFL with 32 teams does. And plus, the players just aren't as good. They never got into fighting for the football over the coin flip. However, the XFL did give us a few things, much like, the USFL gave us the coaching challenge. Well, the XFL gave us, and you see this now in college football a lot, the, shall I say, Madden game view of how to broadcast a football game. Different camera angles, the on-field cameraman, etc., etc. The quote coming out, Vince McMahon has established and is personally funding a separate entity from WWE, Alpha Entertainment, to explore investment opportunities across the sports and entertainment landscapes, including pro football. Mr. McMahon has nothing further to announce at this time. That's what I said back in December. But ESPN produced the 30 for 30 documentary. Dick Ebersol, NBC wanted football when they lost, obviously, the AFC. They have Sunday Night Football in 2000. I'm sorry. They were trying to get back into the game. They said, okay, XFL, XFL also gave us what? They gave us Rod Smart, He Hate Me. That was fun. Gave us Tommy Maddox, who became the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers before Ben Roethlisberger took over. How does a new football league try to make it? I was saying that the smaller venues embracing that. The AFL, and I'm talking about the American Football League, obviously made it. And one of the ways that they made it was that they did embrace those smaller markets, if you will, the markets that didn't have football. There was a feeling of time, of course, you were able to also take part of a mindset, a 1960 mindset that wasn't necessarily forward thinking. But I'll give you the example. The old American Football League. You know why the old American Football League, 1960 started up? Lamar Hunt wanted pro football in Dallas. That's how it started up. There had been a team in 1952, didn't make it. And the NFL, which was 12 teams at the time, and very Midwestern in its orientation, they said, Texas, come on, that's college football country. They'll never make it. Pro football, there's pro football and there's college. They're all about colleges down there. They're in the Midwest here. They had 2 teams in Chicago, for crying out loud, in those days. And so what would go about was that Lamar Hunt decided, okay, I'll show you. I'll start a new football franchise. I'll put a team in Dallas. I'll put one in Houston. I'll put one in, where did they put one in the original AFL? There were LA and Dallas, LA and New York. Buffalo was a place, Miami didn't have it initially. What were the original? Cincinnati didn't have it initially. Denver had it, initially, certainly. So, they had, and I'm forgetting some other teams, I'm sure. Anyway, so they found markets that wanted pro football, that wanted to be cosmopolitan. And they also weren't, married to, so they did a very good thing, I think. Well, I'm opposed to franchise relocation, but, moving the Chargers, ironically, from Los Angeles to San Diego after the first year, and probably saying, you know what, we're probably not going to beat the Rams out here, but we might be able to have this market all to ourselves. That worked. Boston was another, I can't believe it. I forgot about the Patriots, my goodness. But that was another market that had the AFL back in the day. And the NFL, when that happened, they created a war. They just said, okay, you want a team in Dallas so bad in the NFL, we'll put one. They created the Cowboys. That's how the Cowboys came about. It was a total reaction to the creation of the AFL. It was to drive Lamar Hunt out of business. This native Texan finally, got the hint eventually and moved the Texans to Kansas City, fearing that Dallas couldn't have two football franchises at the time. They might now. That would have been interesting because it's so big now. You could actually see, Dallas with two football franchises. One in Fort Worth, maybe. Especially because Fort Worth wants its own identity from Dallas. But, no, that's a little football history 101. In fact, the Raiders, I'll give you this little tidbit. Don't know this. The Raiders were originally supposed to be in Minnesota. I'm serious as a heart attack. Raiders were originally slated to be in Minnesota. And the NFL, realizing that, wait, there's this AFL coming in. They created the Vikings, actually announcement a year later and all that. And the AFL said, wait a minute, no, where can we put a team? And somehow they chose Oakland, California. And the Oakland Raiders actually did not play in Oakland the first few years. They actually played in San Francisco. But, no, I think they had Candlestick Park and the Niners had Kezar a couple of years. And then eventually there was a temporary stadium built for the Raiders, and then they eventually moved to the Coliseum. But anyway, Football History 101, and where I'm going with this is that the XFL, where do you put the teams? And as I said, old AFL, these cities wanted to be more cosmopolitan. And it also was a period of the time, true. I mean, a bidding war back then. My goodness! The Jets are paying Joe Namath $400,000 a year. What's that? Now that's, a backup holder of $400,000 a year, But the expenses were a little bit more conducive in those days. Anyway, this is an interesting thing that CBS Sports is putting down. Yes, I know we're 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, but CBS Sports. I've long maintained the XFL has actually received too much grief from these looking back on its failures years later. Had some rating successes. First week it did. There was a curiosity factor. Football improved as the season went on. Probably did, but the thing is, you need to have, I think, some stars. The USFL did have an impact. Of course, the thing was, I do remember the USFL, and we look back at it fondly, but at the time, there was a lot of criticism. Oh, this is terrible football. This is awful football. You had Jim Kelly, you had Steve Young, you had Herschel Walker, they were signing the Heisman winners every year. Oh, it's terrible football, So, but the thing that might just allow a rival football league to make it now is that people seem to be angry at the NFL. And if they can manage those waters correctly, then that might have an impact. I can't see them having the footprint. I can't see them having the stars initially, at least. It'll take, 10 years to be able to get into that bidding war and such. I can see pro player and football players who, of the four major sports, I believe per capita make the fewest amount of money, their salaries possibly, if it's successful, going up. But yeah, there is anger at the NFL right now. And the other thing is that the NFL, and I said this, I thought one of the reasons why the NFL is not as popular as it used to be is that it seems to be in a mindset to go away from the heartland, where you are taking teams from St. Louis, putting them in Los Angeles. You're taking teams, that the Oakland Raiders, this magical brand, and you're turning them into the team of Steve and Edie in Las Vegas, excuse me. You're having all that sort of circumstance. And XFL could return pro football to the heartland. I mentioned Birmingham, but just wherever. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Who's got some millions of dollars, wants to build a stadium out there? But why not try to make the Tri-Cities more cosmopolitan? Okay, it's a pipe dream. I give you that. But I just want the area to start thinking, you know what? We are a top 100 market. We're not that much smaller than Green Bay. If that's the bottom rung that you want to, go up for. I think Tri-Cities is it's in the 90s, and it fluctuates from some period of time, but it's like about the 92nd TV market. Green Bay is 70. I'll give you just an example. I would also point out, if you just think that this is, you got to be absurd here. There's a huge NASCAR track. Who would have thought that would have been possible? More looking at just, the Tri-Cities and its potential, if you will. What about, and it's just this bringing football back to the heartland. Well, we're the heartland. And you can make a lot of, discovery of the area with a pro sports franchise. Last comment, I've said this many times. If you go back to 1990, Las Vegas and the Tri-Cities, the absolute, well, I shouldn't say the absolute same size, but I think that Las Vegas was the 90th largest TV market and the Tri-Cities was around 92. So it's the same size TV market, basically. Now look at Las Vegas. This is what pro sports can do to a community. Just want to point that out. Anyway, that's shocking news. There's going to be a new XFL, and anyway, maybe spending a little too much time with it. But hey, where will the franchises go? A stadium around here, that's going to prohibit in Tri-Cities. Let's build one. What the heck, all right? Let us celebrate the new Greenville Reds general manager, Paul Kleinheim-Schultz. He's coming on the air next after this. Tri-City Sports Now, its second half hour coming up.
Firestone Destination